Well, here it is, the OnePlus 8 and 8 Pro. Let's see how OnePlus have done this time around. We know all the specs, we know the prices more or less. Let's put them up against the competition and see how they stack up. Starting with the OnePlus 8, and we've got these specs leaks from Ishan early on, but they've been confirmed by OnePlus, who have given us pretty much all the specs officially too. The problem that OnePlus had is that the OnePlus 7T, which was released towards the tail end of last year, was an amazing phone for an amazing price. It's almost impossible to make a better phone than that, considering that the non-Pro version is supposed to keep the price as low as possible. The OnePlus 8 though is a very solid base for a phone. Actually, when you put it up against a very big competitor, the Redmi K30, there are really two areas where they differ. OnePlus aren't using any new camera hardware in the OnePlus 8. It's not that they're cutting back on the hardware, but they're not using the latest upgraded versions, which essentially amounts to the same thing. For example, the K30 Pro uses the upgraded version of the sensor that OnePlus is using. They're using the 64 megapixel IMX686. How much this actually matters, hardware and software, we're not going to find out until we can have a camera test side by side, which I'm going to do, by the way. But really, when you look at those two phones, if gaming is important to you in any way, shape or form, if you play games and you like to play games, then the OnePlus 8 has that 90 Hz refresh rate, and it does make a difference. The screen on the K30 Pro isn't a bad screen, but there's no getting around it. 60 Hz and 90 Hz is not the same, and 90 Hz is better for gaming. A more interesting battle is the Mi 10 and the OnePlus 8. These are the two non-Pro versions from these two brands which have just made flagship phones now. They both have an ultra-wide camera with no zoom camera. They've both left that to the Pro versions. Actually, the Mi 10 has 30-watt wireless charging in the non-Pro, and OnePlus aren't including any wireless charging whatsoever. Not very important to some of you, I know. But it also has this 108 megapixel image sensor. Again, megapixels aren't everything in the camera setup. There are a lot of different variables that make up the camera system, but wireless charging and that 108 megapixel image sensor are just expensive components to put in the phone, and these two phones go head to head, and the OnePlus doesn't have those. So if the OnePlus 8 is sold in the same markets as the Mi 10, then looking at the spec sheet at least, it shouldn't be more expensive than the Mi 10 because the hardware components shouldn't cost them any more money to put together. Depending on which country you're in and the availability of both of these phones though, that's a different story. Another interesting comparison is against the iPhone 11, which is by far the most popular iPhone of the bunch. It is again a very similar affair where you get a main sensor and an ultra-wide sensor. The iPhone is a bit special because it's got iOS and it's also got its own chipset, which is extremely good, the Apple A13. The OnePlus 8 though has a bigger screen, a better refresh rate, a bigger battery and faster charging. When it comes to the cameras though, a lot of people love the iPhone cameras, especially for video, and overall as a package you've got iOS and the Apple ecosystem. The OnePlus 8 expected to come around $700 or $750 US before any sales tax, which is right up there with any flagship phone right now. Maybe the S20 series is a bit more expensive, but you can get the iPhone for around that price. I think the days of OnePlus giving more for less are pretty much over, and considering the specs are very similar to those under layer flagship phones, it's going to cost more or less the same amount. When it comes to the OnePlus 8 Pro, it is all about the OnePlus 8 Pro versus the Galaxy S20 Plus. These two are basically the same phone when it comes to hardware. They both have 6.7-inch displays, Quad HD, 120 Hz. That is just not going to get beaten this year in terms of quality of displays. Two of the best displays. A big difference is that Samsung limit 120 Hz to Full HD, whereas the OnePlus 8 Pro will let you choose 120 Hz and Quad HD. If that is a big deal to you, then certainly the OnePlus 8 is going to give you more choice. Most people though are fine with 120 Hz and Full HD. Just gives you a bit more battery life anyway. The cameras are also a really interesting comparison. OnePlus are adding a brand new, bigger, expensive image sensor under their main lens at 48 megapixels. They're also putting the OnePlus 8's main image sensor under the OnePlus 8 Pro's ultra-wide lens. So the ultra-wide should be getting a big bump up in quality too, but both of those image sensors use 4:1 pixel binning, so they'll be shooting 12 megapixel images in normal photo mode, and that is the same amount of megapixels as the S20 Plus uses under its main and ultra-wide lenses. They both give you 3 times telephoto zoom as well. The 64 megapixels under the S20 Ultra is a lot of megapixels, but it uses the zoom lens for different things as well, including 8K video recording. They both have 4,500 milliamp hour batteries. They both give 25 or 30 watt fast charging and fast wireless charging too. You can get 30 watt wireless charging on the OnePlus 8 Pro, but only if you buy the OnePlus 8 charging accessory. If you want to use the Qi wireless standard and all of those chargers, it charges at 5 watts, whereas the S20 Plus can go up to 15 watts. All in all, these two phones are just inseparable. They are almost the same phone, really, when you look at the specs sheet. It's just going to come down to availability, price, and which brand and operating system skin that you like. Putting it up against the Mi 10 Pro, and you can also see a ton of similarities. The OnePlus 8 Pro is giving you that industry-leading screen. It's not going to get beaten by pretty much anything, so it's definitely going to give you a better experience in terms of refresh rate than the Mi 10 Pro. The Mi 10 Pro, though, adds that 108 megapixel image sensor, and it's just expensive. If it makes a big difference or not, we'll have to see them side by side in camera tests. Again, I'll be doing that one. But again, the battery specs are almost exactly the same. Actually, the Mi 10 Pro has faster wired charging than the OnePlus 8 Pro. Up against the iPhone 11 Pro also, you can see where these Android phones steal a march on iPhones. It's in the screen and the refresh rates. The iPhone's still stuck at 60 Hz, whereas you're just going to get a completely different experience with a 120 Hz display on the OnePlus 8 Pro. Charging will be faster as well, and you just get a much bigger screen than you do on the iPhone 11. The iPhone 11 Pro Max giving you more or less the same features, but a bigger battery and a bigger screen overall. So there you have it, the OnePlus 8 and OnePlus 8 Pro, two flagship phones. These are not flagship killers anymore. These are not going to give you a good amount of hardware for a good price. These are flagship phones using flagship hardware that go head to head with the best phones in the industry, and the price is going to reflect that too. Subscribe for all the latest tech news and videos. That's it for now, but I'll see you in the next one.